Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Radical Center. We hope you've been enjoying our episodes to date. We've had some really insightful discussions so far on this podcast. It hasn't been too long, but we seem to have a steady viewership, I would say. We've got some people listening. We're not just speaking into the void, so we do appreciate that. This will be our last episode of 2024 because we are going to take a break for the holidays, and we want you to take a break for the holidays and get off X, get away from social media, stop watching the news for 2 weeks, and enjoy the holidays. Have a Merry Christmas and have a wonderful New Year with your loved ones. And we wish you that, and we'll talk more about that towards the end. But Cody, how are you doing?
I'm doing
You're sad.
well. It's the last episode of the year, and we started this in Yeah, we're both wearing red, wrapping the red, right?
Yeah.
We're both wearing red. It's the Christmas season. I'm very happy. As we were just talking before we came on the air, it's like 4 more sleeps and 4 more work sleeps, and then it'll be the Christmas holidays, and then it's fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to having some downtime. The past few weeks, past couple months have been like the busiest months of my life. So I'm looking forward to having a little bit of a break. It has been a bit of a week in Canadian politics and, I guess Canadian-U.S. relations. There's a little tiff going on. I'm going to call it a tiff between our Prime Minister and Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States. And I don't even know where this began, but I guess he went to dinner with him and maybe they got along, maybe they didn't. But all of a sudden, Donald Trump is calling him the governor of Canada, which is a pretty big demotion, I would say. What do you think is going on, Cody? And how do you think the Prime Minister is handling the relationship between the United States and Canada at this very, tense time, I would say?
We've talked about this many times, and we're going to talk about it again. This podcast is called The Radical Center, and I'm going to go a bit radical for a few minutes. I'm going to rant a little bit, but it's for a reason. It's for a reason, I promise you. Look, I've been so disappointed this week, and I'm about to go Donkey Kong on the complete and total hapless, dumbass journalists and our Prime Minister. Because on one hand, you have the media in complete and total meltdown over a troll tweet. And this entire week, time after time, I listened to journalists seriously discuss Canada becoming a 51st state. And now for people who claim to have university degrees, like this week, they seem to be some of the dumbest people with the worst political instincts. And on the other hand, you have the Prime Minister with this faux feminist mantra talking about the United States not electing the first woman president for the second time. Kamala Harris lost in a free and fair election, and that had nothing to do with misogyny. She's a bad candidate. And it was borne out by Trump winning the Electoral College and the popular vote, which no Republican presidential candidate has done since George W. Bush. And I'll remind everybody, in my opinion, that the most crooked politician in American history, Hillary Clinton, even got more votes than Donald Trump in 2016. So it's not like the United States doesn't want to vote for a woman for president. They just don't want to vote for a bad one. But what I do want to get at is the bigger issue. And he talked about feminism. And Justin, if you want to know what real feminism is, real feminism is making sure that the single mother of 2 can afford to put groceries on the table and put the kids through soccer. Real feminism is making sure that the 21-year-old college student who's going to be graduating from college has a job there for her. Real feminism is making sure that the 30-year-old lady is able to buy a home without a second income.
Yeah.
Now, just Donald Trump doesn't
I like that last one.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm not done.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
feminist Cody.
Yeah. Donald Trump doesn't take our prime minister seriously, not just because he's on his way out the door, but because he pretends to be a tough guy by insulting the king of insults. Now, we'll talk about it more, but the speech that he gave at the Women's Gala, it was scripted, it was recorded. And anyone who has a brain knows that he wanted to send a message. Now, the last thing that I would say is that I'm a proud patriot. I love my country. And nothing infuriates me more than the leader of my country going out of his way to push his full values on this country. And that's it for now, all I'll say. But what I'll wrap it up before I hand it over to you is that I really want our country to get through this tough time.
Mm-hmm.
We both do.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable saying that because I know we agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you have to understand that you're dealing with a different cat. You're dealing with somebody who doesn't go by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to insult the king of insults, you're going to screw our country over.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, let's open it up to you, Nokha.
Yeah, I mean,
because I said a lot there.
It was, yeah, you did. And it was certainly poorly timed. And not very well politically calculated. You would think that the prime minister would have some staff who would be like, especially if it's a scripted speech, right? Who would know what to talk about when they're dealing with a brand new president. And honestly, like, of course, Donald Trump has a particular persona and everybody's like, oh, what's he going to do next kind of deal. Even with any new president, you don't know him. Well, I mean, you know Donald Trump, but someone who's coming in that's new, you don't start off a relationship by, grieving the loss of their opponent based on your own perspective of, what you think should have happened. The reality is, and like you said, look, I'm a woman. I'm a feminist. I'm pretty sure I'm a bigger feminist than Justin Trudeau. And let me tell you something. Kamala Harris was an absolutely terrible candidate. She couldn't answer a question properly. She, was condescending to voters. She handled the war issue terribly, expecting that she's going to win Michigan regardless. And that did not happen. And unfortunately, she was not able to resonate and answer and respond to the concerns of everyday Americans. And that's the reason why she lost. She did not lose because she was a woman. So we need to get away from that. We really need to get away from that. Do we need more women in politics? Absolutely, 100%. Do we need, a woman to become president of the United States? Sure, why not? But it has to be the right woman. We need to make sure that the person is a good candidate and they can actually run a country. One of the criticisms of Justin Trudeau is, his gender parity cabinet. Not that because I have a problem with gender parity, but just because someone has a particular gender doesn't, give them a seat in cabinet. You need to make sure that you're putting the right people for the job. That's the job of a leader. A prime minister is a CEO of a country. You have to make sure that the people you're putting in charge of particular portfolios, particular departments that have very serious responsibilities, that have to make very serious decisions, are fully capable of doing so. That's your number one job. I'm not saying representation is not important. It's 100% important, right? And that's why we have so many MPs. We have a lot of MPs. You should have representation from diverse communities. You should have representation, of course, for women. You should have all of these different things. But the reality is, when it comes to managing a whole country, you need to make sure that the people who are doing the job are absolutely well equipped to do it. And that takes more than creating a particular, or setting a particular goal and wanting to meet it. Won't get into the specifics of who I'm not a fan of in his cabinet, but if you've read some of my tweets, you might know.
Okay, well, I'm going to say one because I don't really care. I'm going to say, listen, one of the people who I thought had a little, like a sliver of potential was Melanie Joly. And she is like, I don't think she's like the dumbest cabinet minister because there's a long list, but she's definitely one of the worst. Because I don't understand this country, Canada, the peacekeeping country.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we've become um not a peacekeeper. You know what I mean? Like, we were the country that would lead the United Nations into world conflicts and serve as a referee, right? If the United States neglected their obligation as the leader of the free world, it's Canada that would step up. And every time Melanie Jolie comes to the mic, she's like, she doesn't know, and she says we have a plan, but she really doesn't. So here we go. I did it. I said it, so you don't have to.
You said it. It's not a secret. I am not a fan of Melanie Jolie. I am also not a fan of Chrystia Freeland. Who, for the rumors are, or I don't know if they're rumors or it's true, Trudeau is looking to replace Freeland with Mark Carney. That would be a smart move. Although, I don't know, it's probably a bad idea for Carney. I don't know if you're listening, Mark. Don't do it. But what's going on? You know, apparently there's some tensions between them. And what do you think of this move? Maybe, what do you think of this move for Trudeau? And then we can talk a little bit more about if it would be a good idea for Carney to get himself into this mess.
Well, it's kind of hard to say because there's like a few different like ways of looking at it. Like, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that you replace one elitist snob with an even bigger elitist snob, but at the same time you're getting somebody who actually knows how to communicate, like Chrystia Freeland. Like, I can't even follow sometimes, and like I have to rewatch her over and over and over again because it's emptiness, it's nothingness, right? And I mean, if he has to choose what his cabinet is going to look like going into the next election, and I mean, yes, he's probably going to lose. The next budget, if we survive that long, is going to be an election budget. You need to choose people who you want to be the face of your campaign. And if Mark Carney is going to be the face of it, then I think like carbon tax Carney for the Conservatives, I think that at the end of the day, where they're sitting right now, they don't really care who it is. And there's talk of, Tom O'Kerr was saying something about Justin Trudeau might have already decided that he's not going to be the leader in the next election. But from my perspective, I think it'd be much better for the Conservatives to defeat Justin Trudeau and his current cabinet, because they'll be able to say that it was a repudiation of Trudeau, not necessarily the Liberal Party. So I don't know. I mean, these types of things, like, there's gossip all the time. There's a million times that I could think, like, you and I, when we were involved in municipal politics, you go to an event, somebody would say this, somebody would say that, and it's a gossip ring. So I don't really know. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and also, like, he'll need to get him a seat. I mean, cabinet ministers don't actually have to have seats. Traditionally, you probably need to get him a seat. And I don't know, but by election, the Liberals are winning anytime soon. So I don't know where he's going to put him.
Look, Rishi Sunak, he did something really smart. Even though he lost, he was going to lose anyways. But he did something really smart. He appointed a former prime minister to be foreign minister, and his job was to focus on that portfolio, not to worry about getting a seat, not to worry about winning an election. And I think that was smart. So in that way, regardless, I mean, it's different. And at least he can run with that, right?
Yeah, and it's something you can communicate around, but Carney might want to have a seat because then the Conservatives are going to go after him pretty hard to say that, especially if he wants to stay in politics. In general, it's a bad idea for Carney. Don't do it. Mark, listen to me. Don't do it. This is a bad idea. You want to stay as far away from Trudeau as possible if you want to have an actual political career. Just stay away from him. Be like, no, thank you. We're still friends, but I'm busy. Just say you're busy. Say you have stuff to do. You got some things going on, and then when he's gone, then you can come in. That's my best advice for Carney. I don't think he listens to this podcast, or he would listen to my advice anyway. But Doug Ford, he showed up out of nowhere, right? He showed up out of nowhere and said, you know what? nobody's handling the situation. I'm going to handle the situation. And I don't know. I can't even believe it how he does these things.
He's kicking ass and taking names.
Yes, basically.
That's what he's doing.
You don't even expect it. You're just kind of like going about your day, and it's like, Ford threatens to cut off energy supply to the U.S. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? So very interesting turn of events. You have a premier who he is, he's the guy who's going to stand up and fight for Ontarians at all costs, and he doesn't care who he's going to fight. Mm-hmm. He stands up and he says, if Trump wants to put tariffs and make them significant, and that we're going to cut off their electricity supply. We're going to turn the lights off. What do you think of that? And how do you think that's being received?
Well, to start off, he's not insulting Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He's being tough, but he's not, doing it in a cringe way, right? He's saying, look, I'll be diplomatic, but at the end of the day, if you guys are going to slap these tariffs on, then we're going to cut you off. And it's smart to use the energy thing as a bargaining chip, because I remember way back in January when Donald Trump was campaigning in New Hampshire, and he was saying to people, he's like, you guys got to vote for me because I'm going to cut your energy prices in half. And he said everything else is going to follow. Mm-hmm. And it's true. If we cut them off, they've got a big problem on their hands, right? But I think, speaking about appointing people to cabinet that doesn't need a seat, I am of the firm belief that if Justin Trudeau really wants to save this issue and come out unscathed, he should appoint Doug Ford, maybe not as a cabinet minister, but as some sort of special envoy for trade. Because mm-hmm. Doug Ford is the premier. He's, like I said before, he's the chair of the Council of Premiers, or whatever it is they call it. But he speaks on behalf of all the premiers, and he is being tough, but he's not insulting the incoming president. And it's the right balance, right? And for him, when you go back and you look at previous clips, you're not going to see him insulting you're not going to see him insulting Donald Trump. You're not going to see him bashing Republicans in the United States. And as I was saying with these journalists, the coverage here in Canada has been really terrible, because I take in a lot of American media. I listen to a lot of American podcasts. I watch a lot of American television. And I'm telling you, there is a contrast on these podcasts and these TV stations where they'll talk about Justin Trudeau insulting Donald Trump, and then they pivot to Doug Ford, and they'll say the Premier of Ontario is threatening to cut off energy. And, insults versus strength, right? Yeah. And the strength is going to get to the advisors around Donald Trump to go to him and say, look, if we put these tariffs in place, the Canadians are going to cut us off. Mm-hmm. So I think he's handling it as well as anybody could without going overboard.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And he also said that he would ban some alcohol, I guess, to that goes to the United States from Ontario. I completely agree with you. I think Doug Ford has done a pretty good job overall when it comes to crisis times. I still remember, I wasn't always a big fan of Doug Ford. I think it's pretty clear now. I can honestly say that I do like the guy.
I wasn't either. Like I said before, in the beginning, I really could not. I couldn't at the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the moment that that changed for me. It was during the pandemic. I used to work at a hospital during the pandemic, and there was the fear of the 95 masks running out. And I remember that speech when I don't even remember exactly what he said, but I just remember that Doug Ford gave some speech about how he's going to go get them himself if he has to. And he, wants it to happen as soon. And I don't even know if he actually did anything about it or didn't do anything about it. I just remember being there and, this actually being a big thing in my life and seeing this man who I didn't really like at the time and how, he just wanted to make it happen. Like he just, and nobody else was, I guess, fighting as hard as he was. Now I know some of it, this is optics, some of it is politics, but from my perspective, what I saw that day was pretty genuine. And from that day onwards, I was kind of like, maybe he's not as bad as I think he is, or he's as bad as people think he is. This is similar. This reminds me of that moment where, there is a big crisis going on and he steps up. He shows up and he says, I'm going to lead the way because nobody else is leading the way and I'm going to take charge here. And I like that about him. I also think it's, I think it's kind of funny how he shows up out of nowhere and he kind of, I guess, in a way outshines the prime minister on this issue, like you said. Yeah, I mean, I hope things work out. We don't want to go through this. We don't want to have a trade war with the United States. We want to be good neighbors. We want to get along. And like you said in previous episodes, this is really about border security. And, they have the right to want their borders to be secure, right? And I think that's something that Canada should want also. But I find it really interesting when Ford takes these strong positions and, leads the way or takes the charge. It reminds me of that moment always, and I'll never forget it. So, that's really all we wanted to talk about for today in terms of current issues. But this is going to be our last episode of 2024. So it hasn't been that long. We've only done a few episodes.
This is number 6.
This is number 6. So this is really exciting. How do you, I guess, let's talk about our feelings. How do you feel, Cody? How is it going? Do you still want to do this next year, or are you going to be like, I'm done?
Well, it's really interesting. And I know we try and keep it in a time limit, but at the end, people are probably going to tune out. So whatever. But I'm going to go on. So you and I, we first met 2019, I believe. It was at the school board.
Yes, there was a revolution at the school board, friend.
There was a revolution that we'll probably talk about someday. But there was a revolution at the school board, and I remember sitting there, and in the front row, you were to my right, and I'm the only white guy there, supporting the Black community. And then, we went to the minister, even Lecce.
Yeah.
I didn't really say much because all I was there to do was just to show my support about this loser trustee that unfortunately got reelected. But so then we didn't really talk after that. And then, I moved to Mississauga. I started, seeing some of your tweets and started reposting them. And you called me and you're like, hey, do you want to start a podcast? And I'm like, wow, that's funny because I was thinking about that too. So look, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. These first 6 episodes is to, get the ball rolling. It's to figure out who our audience is, what they want us to cover. And what we're really trying to do here is, because we're both no BS type of people, we are trying to facilitate, whatever, big words, facilitate a conversation that brings both sides of the spectrum together. And the first 5 or 6 episodes are to, to build up our catalog and to, get some people involved. But look, next year, it's going to be a provincial election, a federal election. And as time goes on, a lot of things are going to change. And I'm really excited.
Yeah. Me too. I do remember that the moment you described. I think I have a picture of it. It was a canceled meeting at the school board.
Yeah, and you guys showed up, and you guys sat there, and you're like, I'm here for the meeting.
And me and Kathy showed up in protest.
Yeah, and you sat there, and I was just like, wow. I'm like, this is the school board. This is not city council. This is not the House of Commons. And it just kind of, took off from there. And it's like,
Yeah.
Like
I remember those days. Long nights and lots of great people. But yeah, I've enjoyed every single episode. It's been great. You're really easy to talk to, which is really fun. Like you said, it's kind of new. We're still getting comfortable. I am happy to share that, we're actually doing pretty okay for like a very, 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 very new podcast with 6 episodes. So I'm very impressed with that. I'm hoping that, we'll continue to do better and we'll have more engagement. We seem to have, I think I said it last time, we seem to have different episodes take off on different platforms. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you're right. Different platforms, different episodes will take off. Some will do great and some will do terrible. And I'm not really focused on that. I'm focused right now on making the content, because eventually we have to point back to something. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited. So, we look forward to a new year. We look forward to potentially a provincial election, for sure a federal election. There has to be one next year, but potentially a provincial election. I think you and I were talking earlier, most likely maybe the spring or the fall, we'll see. But yeah, we'll get you in-depth analysis. We will continue to share our wisdom with you. We'll even have some guests over to our podcast who will hopefully be from all different political parties, from, many different sides of the spectrum, because we want to hear from everyone. We're not here trying to pull for one side or another. And I think that's the best part about this. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for listening to us, for getting interested in what we're doing. We are going to keep doing it, but we are going to take a little bit of a break. You see us wearing red. We're already in the holiday spirit. And we want to enjoy it for ourselves, but we also want you to enjoy it and maybe stay away from news and politics for a while, because we know that can be a little bit draining. Although I know Cody is not going to do that.
No.
But thank you so much for listening. We hope we brightened the end of your 2024, and we look forward to a fantastic 2025. And we'll keep bringing you more content, more lively discussions, and hopefully even some interviews or stuff like that. We'll see.
Yep. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you on the flip side. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, the whole list. And we'll see you on the flip side in 2025.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. And we'll be back in 2025. Just wait for us.